Welcome to the April 25th, 2024 Orville Planning Commission / Historical Advisory Committee meeting. Please call roll.
Glenn Arossi.
Here.
Marissa Hallen.
Here.
Natalie Sheard.
Here.
Warren Jensen.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Wyatt Jenkins.
Here.
And I note Carl Durling as absent, as well as Terry Smith, who does not appear to be on the agenda tonight. My apologies.
Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, with liberty. Please be seated. Wes, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two quick items of business here that should be done before we get into the real business. First of all, you have a letter in front of you where Carl Durling, our Planning Commission Chair, is resigning due to his ongoing health issues. I did meet with him a couple of days ago, and he has really enjoyed his 10-year tenure on this commission and is very sorry to leave. He wanted to make sure that he personally will recommend that Natalie Sheard be elected by this body as the next chair. However, the commission will have to conduct an election at the next meeting. It'll have to be published first. So he does hope that his health improves enough so that he can return to the commission someday. So very heartwarming discussion with him. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Christina Heridia. She is our new associate planner, and she comes to us most recently from Marysville, but prior to that, she worked as a city planner in several jurisdictions out of state, including Fairbanks, Alaska. So she'll be taking an active role in our planning issues and such, and especially in supporting the Planning Commission. So she'll be emceeing this evening. Welcome.
Do we have anybody here that wishes to speak on non-agenda items?
I have no submitted speaker cards.
Thank you. We will open the public hearing and have a staff report for item number 1.
That's the wrong side.
There we go. Ready?
Yep.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners and Mr. Vice Chair. Tonight, we're going to talk about a 3-case project for the Edwards Mini Storage. It is a facility that is going to be located behind the Reeby's on Feather River Boulevard, adjacent to the Tractor Supply and the fitness center. It is proposed to have 212 storage units and to be fully automated with no caretaker on site. So, as I mentioned, there are 3 cases. The first is a zone change to add a mini storage overlay. Then the next one is a use permit, which is required with the mini storage overlay. And the third is a variance that is in 2 parts, which we will go over in a few minutes. So the first one is the zone change, which is to create the mini storage overlay zone. A little quick history, the mini storage overlay zone was created in 2004. And then in 2004, one storage unit was granted this overlay, and that is the storage unit that's located at 60 East Grand Avenue. It is currently the only storage unit we have in the city that has a MS overlay on it right now. So if this is approved, this will become the second one in the city. There is a requirement in the mini storage overlay that if you are in what's considered a highly visible area, you have to get the use permit, and so that's one of the permits we are applying for today. And also, we have to do an assessment of impacts for the mini storage overlay. So on the mini storage overlay assessment of impacts, currently the city has 10 different mini storage facilities within the city, and those are all the orange circles that you see there on the screen. The one that has the square around it, that is the 60 East Grand Avenue that has the mini storage overlay. And then the green one, all the way down on the left, that is where Mr. Edwards is proposing to put this storage unit facility. Currently, there are approximately 3,149 storage units in the city. The two that have stars on there, those are the one is the one that's existing with the mini storage overlay, and the second one is the one proposed today with 212 units. So we have many that have more. One has almost 700 units, and then we have a tiny one that only has about 20 units. And so we do have a good mix in the city. Staff has determined, though, based on how many units the applicant is proposing, as well as where the location is in relation to others in the city, that the impacts of this unit as proposed will be minimal. And so the assessment, in staff's opinion, has been satisfied. So the next is the use permit, and again, this is because it's in a highly visible area. Highly visible areas within the city are adjacent to State Route 70 and Feather River Boulevard. This happens to be both. So, highly visible though. However, because of its unique location in the rear of a property, even though it's considered highly visible, it's not actually that visible from the front. So this is what you see when you're on Feather River Boulevard, and the storage unit is proposed to be behind all of that. And so the visual impact from the front is very minimal. And then this is the view you get from the freeway. So there are trees in the Caltrans right-of-way. There is a condition that if any of these trees are removed for whatever reason by the applicant, that they be replaced because it helps protect the subtlety of the area. Also on the use permit, there are design requirements to, again, part of being in a highly visible area. And then there's findings that have to be made. All of those are in your staff report. And this is just a slide of what the storage unit will look like. The very last case is going to be for a variance. The applicant has requested 2 variances. The first is a reduction in the required off-street parking, and that is because currently, based on square footage and I would say a slightly antiquated development process where they used to have caretakers in them, the requirement is to have 13 parking spaces. There is going to be no caretaker at this facility. It is fully automated, and it does not have. Oh my goodness! Sorry. Okay. There's a requirement that the drive aisles be a minimum of 20 feet in width. The applicant has gotten greater than that. They start off at 23 and they go to 34. And so that is plenty of space for a car to park and, if necessary, an emergency vehicle to bypass them. And so because of the fact that the drive aisles are wide and there's no caretaker and it's fully automated, so there's no staff on site, we felt that the need to have such a large amount of parking was unnecessary for this particular. And so we are in favor of granting the variance. And the second variance is to have 6 storage units that are greater than the maximum allowed. So right now our ordinance allows 400 square feet, and we have 6 that are larger. One is because it's the orientation on the lot. A corner unit, it's at 480. The only way to make it smaller would be to just basically close half of it off, and so we didn't feel that was necessary. And then the other one is to have covered RV storage. And so I did part of the assessment that I did on this project was to see how many other places offer RV storage. And this is a windshield survey because I can't get into the storage units, but it appears that a lot of them do allow you to park your RV on site but they're not covered. And it would appear that that is a need that the city is not currently providing its residents, and this will be that opportunity. However, in order to store an RV, you need more than 400 square feet. So the applicant has proposed to have 5 of these units, and staff is in favor. And we also find that the findings have been satisfied, and they are in your staff report as well. So this is just a quick little thing on the site plan. The blue square in the top corner, that is the corner unit that, just for configuration reasons, it's a little oversized. And then the blue square on the bottom on the right, those are the 5 RV storage units. There are 6 motions that we are asking for. We are asking that you adopt the notice of exemption, that you conduct the public hearing, and that the main one is that that you recommend approval to the city council for the zone change, and then you approve the use permit and the 2 variances. And then this concludes my staff reports. I can answer any questions you may have, and also the applicant is here as well.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to add anything to that?
Thank you.
Could you, sorry, there's a button on the, there you go, you're good. Oh, sorry, they did it remotely. You're good.
I wanted to make sure there wasn't any confusion on the RV units. They're not just covered, they're actually fully enclosed so that people can put their nice buses in there, because we found it was a need for our own motorhome. We couldn't find anywhere in Butte County that would store one indoors, and so that was where we kind of came up with the need for it, or found that there was a need for it, and so. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I think you did a fantastic job, thank you.
And is it fully fenced?
Yes.
And there's lights and everything on it,
Correct. There'll be great security systems with cameras. It'll be all automated. All the locks are automated. We have a call center that's going to help with the management of it. Yeah, lighting for sure. Alarms. I mean, actually, it's already alarmed. The whole facility's already alarmed, but it'll be. Yeah.
are they pretty tall fences?
Yeah. So the building on, if you look at the north side, the building will actually be the fence on the north side towards the gym. And on the other side, on the Tractor Supply side, we're proposing to put a 10-foot steel fence around that. And so, I mean, the last thing we want is trouble. So, yeah.
And if you don't mind me adding, that fence that the applicant has proposed will mimic the storage facility. So it will have the same facade. And so that for all intent, it will look like it's a storage unit, but it'll actually be a security fence.
Yeah, same color scheme, everything. We want it to look nice.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item?
None submitted on this.
We will limit the discussion between staff and planning commission members. Does anybody have any questions of staff or the applicant?
Hit the right button here. So I'd meant to try and look some of this up before I got here, but the week got away from me. This overlay, the overlay for storage units is, I don't know if I've seen anything like this before. Is this just like a parcel by parcel overlay, or how does that work? What is the?
Yes, so when it was adopted in 2004, it was designed to be a parcel by parcel overlay. And the reason for that was the city wanted to limit where storage units could potentially go because they're allowed in all commercial zones. However, there are, in some instances, the public is better served by having different uses. And so by requiring them to go through the zone change overlay, it's just to help make sure that development is orderly.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking it was an overlay that we lay out before and say we think
Yeah,
they could go
that's
here.
usually what an overlay
Yeah,
is.
so I will say that the only other storage unit, the one on Grand that went through, it did the process in reverse. First, it had the zone change, and then a few months later, they came in and they did the use permit for it. It was the same applicant, but they first started with the overlay, decided that's where they wanted it, and then came back.
From what I can tell, it's just a unique set of guidelines that governs how we require storage units to operate and manage
Yes.
their places. Interesting.
It's a particularly passive use, takes up a lot of land and has very few employees. So I think that the part of the purpose of that overlay is to evaluate those factors before approving these projects.
Yeah, and I assume just to make sure that we're not taking away land that could be utilized in some other vision for the city, like, like this parcel here, while it is fairly close to our, our premier interchange with the freeway going through town, it's just being behind the auto parts store, it's just not accessible. So I find this to be a perfectly appropriate use for this property.
Any more questions or comments, or open for motion?
I move to approve item 1 as stated on the agenda.
A second.
Please call roll.
Wait.
Glenna Rossi,
Yes.
Marissa Helen,
Yes.
Natalie Sheard,
Yes.
Warren Jensen,
Yes.
Wyatt Jenkins.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
On to item 2, staff report, please.
Barrett, who is that? Okay. It's going to be just one moment. Connor is going to be rejoining as a panelist so he can present this item.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. This item before you is the variance application for Tractor Supply's freestanding sign at the rear of the property facing State Route 70. You may recall we had a brief discussion on this at our last planning commission meeting where we were discussing our potential sign code update. So location Tractor Supply, located immediately next door to the project where you just approved the mini storage on Feather River. Some history on the site. The Development Review Committee reviewed and approved the Tractor Supply building on March 9th, 2023. Building permits were subsequently obtained. Building permits were issued on February 27th, 2024 for 2 wall signs and 1 monument sign. During the review of those signs, staff issued a comment letter with the freestanding sign that was proposed, stating that it did not comply with code for square footage, max site square footage of signs, height, which has since been resolved with our attorney's interpretation. The applicant removed the freestanding sign from the building permit application for the wall signs and monument signs, and then subsequently reapplied under a separate permit, and staff issued the same comments that were previously provided to the applicant. A variance application was subsequently filed following the second round of comments to request the deviations from code. So the pylon sign is proposed, or the freestanding sign supposed to be located at the rear of the property. You can see here 65.25 square feet at the back end. The proposed sign looks a little bit like this here. The max total sign square footage is exceeded. That is the trigger, one of the triggers of this variance application. Based on the linear footage of the building frontage, sign code allows 255 square feet of signage for all signs on the site. That includes wall signs, monument signs, freestanding signs. Any signs must be within that 255 square foot max. The applicants with the freestanding sign is proposing 270.25 square feet. The minimum required landscaping at the base of the freestanding sign is not provided. That is also a basis triggering this variance application. The sign code requires 130.5 square feet and 0 square feet is proposed. That square footage of landscaping is determined based on twice the size of the face of a freestanding sign. As a condition of approval, staff are proposing a pole cover cladding to be provided in order to demonstrate compliance with the general plan and design guidelines, enhance visual appearances from State Route 70, and align with more recently approved freestanding signs, most notably the Walmart sign located approximately 750 feet to the south, which is a similar height as this one. In addition, it came up during an internal staff meeting that a couple additional conditions of approval are warranted. In this case, prior to building permit final, staff are proposing to add 2 additional conditions. which is site grading shall be in substantial conformance with the approved grading plan. Any disturbance to the site grading during the installation of the sign shall be addressed and returned to their pre-approved condition. And the new hydro seeding or similar measures shall be provided where necessary if existing hydro seeding or unpaved non-landscaped areas are disturbed during the installation of the sign. This came about by one of our building inspectors noting that the site was completely graded, completed, and hydro seeded for occupancy by Tractor Supply. Having the sign contractor come in afterwards to install the sign is likely to result in some disruptions. So we just want to make sure that grading and the necessary mitigation is put back in place. Staff are recommending adoption of Resolution P 2024-07 and approving Variance 24-01 with the recommended conditions of approval, including the two added in this slide. I will be open to any questions. I believe the applicant may be on Zoom for any questions and to provide a brief presentation of their proposal.
Connor, you may want to note that they've already sent an email asking for relief on the cladding part of this as well.
Yes, they did send an email. I believe all of you should have a copy requesting the cladding to not be provided for various reasons such as cost and non-appearance from being in the front of the property. I believe Dawn is on Zoom. She'd be able to answer those questions or provide her justification on that.
Do we have the applicant, would the applicant like to speak?
Wes, just for clarity, is this Dawn Hubbard or is this the dial-in phone we have?
Dawn Hubbard, if she's on.
All right, just one moment. I'm going to give her the capabilities to speak and address the council. Commission, my apologies.
Do you have a Pat Peterson on there also?
I do not. I have one call-in listener with no name,
Okay.
so it could be.
No, it's me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Don Hubbard with Hubbard Signs, and I'm on the phone too because I couldn't get my computer to launch up. So Pat Patterson had a previous appointment that could not attend. So we are proposing that we do not have to put the cladding on. You know, we are right next to Taco Bell, and Taco Bell's pole is almost identical to what Tractor Supply is asking, and they do not have any cladding on theirs, and they do not have any ground covers, and they do not have any landscaping around their poles. And the pole is intact, and it is working beautifully. There's no graffitis on it. There's no wind levels on it. When you put a 30-foot cladding on a pole, this is at the rear of the property. It's not at the beginning, so nobody's going to see this pole from the entrance unless they're in the very back of the parking lot. And, you know, the majority of the people will only see the sign coming off the freeway. So doing an expensive pole cover really does not make sense for the cost of it. And, you know, if you guys, for say, get the high winds, you know, pole covers can come loose too. And a pole in concrete that's painted is a lot sturdier than having to put pole covers that are 30 feet high up in the air. That is why we're asking to have no pole cover and be almost exactly how Taco Bell is right next door.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions for her?
Do we know how deep it's embedded into the concrete, that footing? And
Wes, I think Wes has got my permit plans.
well, is it an either or? It's the cladding?
No, the
In
cladding,
addition to.
cladding is in addition to. It
Okay.
won't affect the structure of the sign.
Okay. And the cladding is aesthetic.
Yes.
That's the goal of the cladding.
The
It's an
McDonald's
aesthetic.
sign, for instance, is clad, I believe.
The McDonald's one is not, but the Starbucks and Panda Express one are immediately across the way.
Yeah. Okay, I thought the way she was presenting it, it sounded like the concrete footing would change based on the cladding.
Oh,
Just wanted to make
yeah,
sure.
no,
Okay,
Oh, sorry, the concrete footing, the whole structure will stay as it's permitted and stated in the engineering drawings. But this sign would be identical to what was allowed for Taco Bell. And, you know, McDonald's and guys are not even on the same area of where Tractor Supply is. So it literally sits right next door to Taco Bell, who has their poles strongly into the ground, has no pole cover, and it's not on the entrance of their location either. So we're hoping that the council will give us the same treatment as basically what Taco Bell did, because it doesn't make sense to put a 30-foot expensive cover around a pole that sits in the back of a parking lot.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item?
None received.
Okay, we will limit discussion to planning commissioners and staff. Does anybody have questions of staff or applicant?
Staff, is it Wes or Connor? Connor, are you there?
I'm here. I'll answer your question.
So so the cladding, does that shield the conduit, or is the conduit for the power of the sign inside the pole, or is it outside the pole?
Let me pull up the plans real quick. So it looks like the conduit is brought to the base of the sign. I'm not sure the feasibility of running it through the middle. Perhaps Dawn, would you be able to provide clarification on that?
So most of the times the power from the sign will run down through the pole, and there will be a hole at the bottom of the pole where there will be a junction box, and we will pull the electrical from that area and put it in a wet sealed J box, a junction box.
That is typical for signs like this and street lights and other kinds of poles.
But the cladding hides
No, the
that.
cladding would not have any effect.
on any of that.
The electrical would already be hidden inside the,
So it goes
pole.
into the center of the pole?
yeah.
Okay. And we don't have a picture of the sign?
Let me share my screen really quick.
And then I was wondering if the trees on the highway cover the bottom of the sign.
It'd probably look
And
just like the photo she had for
That's what I
the,
was wondering for the other guy. It's just the same. So it's only the sign up above that you're seeing. You're looking from the freeway.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so our design guidelines, do they address
this is
the
with or
back
without
of buildings?
So our design guidelines, when it regulates signage and things like that, do not specifically call out where they're placed. It just calls out that freestanding signs should be supported by permanent structures complementary to the on-site design of buildings. And then when it relates to monument signs, goes a little bit more into detail, which I know this is not a monument sign, but it talks about brick or stone or cladding and things like that on that. So it does not discuss it at the rear of the building. I do recognize, staff recognize that it is at the rear of the building. The intent really of the cladding is to, one, maintain the appearances from State Route 70 should the sign be visible from the roadway. In addition to, and I'll talk about it a little bit more tonight, allowing or permitting this with the cladding would align more closely with the our proposed sign code update, which would result in this basically being in conformance with our sign code and not have to worry about any future finger pointing of so-and-so has this and so-and-so doesn't. In the case of Taco Bell, that sign was permitted in 2003, 2004. And as mentioned previously, that sign code and general plan is of a different time. We have had those updated since then. So we're dealing with a different sign code and regulations for that sign.
So this illustration that you're showing out, is that with the revision? With the
No,
with the clad, or
this is just showing it as painted steel pole is black. We're proposing to add that condition requiring that cladding to be added onto the outside of that pole.
is there an illustration of what that would look like?
Probably the closest example would be the Starbucks Panda Express on Oro Dam of what a typical pole cladding for a single mount would look like. I could share my screen with that one too.
And while he's pulling that up, I might point out that one of the conditions for approval is that the applicant is going to keep the sign in a state of good repair at all times, that damage shall be repaired. So, as a reminder.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
And how about the trees, the same, you know how if the trees come down, do they have to be put up like they are for the storage unit next door?
I think all those trees are in the Caltrans right away, and the Caltrans isn't gonna.
All of,
But for the
these trees
storage
are all
unit,
within the
they-
Caltrans right away. And so at this Tractor Supply site, they're proposing, based on my understanding, no landscaping at the rear of the building. So this rear of the building is going to be remaining as unlandscaped natural vegetation. So there are no trees or any irrigation stubs to this rear area.
And I
There's
think-
actually a rather large retention pond in the back of all their.
In this
storm-
corner there is.
All their storm water for Tractor Supply stays right in the back.
And I think I would make the case that the sign at the Starbucks that Connor brought up, thank you for that, because I had no other way of knowing what that looked like, my opinion is it isn't any more visually appealing than than the plain black pole that's not going to draw visual attention to itself like the signpost does at the Starbucks. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I would even go, Tractor Supply is more of industrial, so that would fit the Tractor Supply, but.
And it's the back of a building, so maybe we do need codes that address if you're in the back of the building or the front of the building. It's the back of the building and people are only gonna see the sign up high. They're not gonna
So
see it.
staff's intent with that one, even though it is at the back of the building, it is visible from State Route 70, and we want to help maintain our image from the roadway as opposed to just within, when you're on a local street. But
thought we
as we
said it was-
move forward with the code update, we'd be able to address things like that.
But can you see the landscaping? Can you see the base of that sign from State Route 70?
No, you cannot.
So I guess that's what I was thinking. If you can't see the base of it, then we're not gonna miss the landscaping there.
No. That is correct.
But it would be nice if something like that was in the code if we're gonna make any changes to the code.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I saw the picture, I mean, that cladding around Starbucks, I mean, that is a massive overkill for Tractor Supply. And, I mean, this pole, nobody is gonna see the bottom of this pole. Unless you're a delivery truck that might be dropping off stuff to bring into the storage room. It is literally in the back of the building. I get what Connor says all day long, but this, and I get what he's saying about Taco Bell, but they literally sit right next to each other. And this is an industrial building. It's not an office building. It's not a restaurant. It's where nobody is going to go back there, but maybe a delivery truck.
Thank you. Do we have any motions with anything added or subtracted to them?
Well, I just don't want to get into the habit of, I don't know. I look at the Applebee's sign and it looks terrible.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's
and,
the concern.
That's the crux.
It looks awful.
It does.
It's not maintained. For that fact, the Taco Bell sign I saw today doesn't look that good either. The whole purpose of a sign is for it to be seen, right? That's why it's there, right?
And I assume they must have use permits for those signs that probably have conditions that they keep the signs up in good condition.
Yeah, I asked this
So
last time.
Those signs are just going to be regulated by our sign code. So I think attachment 4 in your packet is that sign analysis of signs along the freeway that I did through Google Earth and things like that, and ran through the permit history of those. And so Applebee's was a sign, I believe, just permitted by right under our regulations at that time. Taco Bell was also a likely sign permitted by right at that time. So maintenance provisions fall just under our sign code of shall be maintained in good working order and things like that. So we just have to rely on that. The added condition in here is just some extra teeth that your variance application requires you to maintain your sign in addition to our sign code.
The pages Connor's been referencing are page 93 through 95 in your packet.
What's the enforcement arm for signs that are not in good repair?
Code enforcement can act on complaints from the public if a sign is in need of repair, or if it is a health and safety hazard, then it would be obviously more priority action. But I think I mentioned this last time, our code enforcement in this case would be a very reactive on a complaint basis if we were to receive one. I don't know if we have, I haven't checked with them.
May I make a statement?
Yeah, yes, one more, but we're in deliberation here, so it's not common. So if you could make a quick one, please.
Oh, sure. Now I forgot what I was gonna say. Holy smokolas. I apologize. I just lost my thought when Connor was talking, and I had it and now I don't. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I think the point of all of our conversation here is that we just want to make sure that this is a sign that's kept in good repair, and we want to make sure that we have the policies and the conditions of approval in place that we can enforce that if we needed to.
That was my comment. So we actually service all the Tractor Supplies up and down the coast through the Northern Californias. So if there is an issue with Tractor Supply, we would be out there within 2 days to fix it. So that is not a problem on our behalf. We go all the way from Lake Tahoe down to Vacaville, out to you guys, past you guys, and we service and install all the Tractor Supplies.
That's wonderful. I've never seen a bad Tractor Supply sign, I do have to say.
All right, so,
Thank you.
so if it pleases the rest of the commission, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the three items that are in as agendized, with the addition or perhaps exception of item number 3 under the prior to issuance of building permits, the item about the cladding or skirting.
Do we have a second?
Enough, Kayla? Okay.
So to clarify, is that waiving the cladding?
Correct. Removing that as a condition. Removing item 3 under, on agenda page 51, prior to issuance of building permits.
We have a
I
mo-
think that's the only one in here that has to do with the cladding, isn't it?
Correct. Staff will just need to update the findings in the resolution to correspond to the Planning Commission's requested action.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Please call roll.
Warren Jensen,
Yes.
Natalie Sheard,
Yes.
Wyatt Jenkins,
Yes.
Marissa Holland,
Yes.
Glenna Rossi.
Yeah.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do think we should update the sign code, though, to address the backs of buildings.
Well, I think,
Well, I don't know. It probably wouldn't come up very often, would it? I mean, I'm comfortable just
On
reviewing
70
it.
it does.
You know, and when it becomes an issue, just reviewing it with the commission so that we have eyes on it, and if there an exception needs to be made, that we have the power and authority to make it. And
I mean, it's nice to have an illustration.
It's not a one-size-fits all.
You know, it's, I mean,
I think so.
a variance usually requires hardship and different things, and this is not really that. It's a preference. So we just have to be careful on how we handle those.
I mean, I think we have a consensus that we do need to address our sign ordinance, whether it gets as specific as where the sign is on the property, if it's in the back or the front or whatnot. Well, we'll see. I think we're going to get into it. We'll see what we decide.
Right, but I mean, especially in things like this, there needs to be a presentation, an illustration of,
Yes.
you know, what it is and what it isn't, right? You know, first presentation was done very nicely. We had nice pictures and illustrations. I think, especially for variances, you need to see that.
Right, because they're asking for an exception. Okay.
Okay, item 3, staff report, please.
Yes, so this is another sign, another variance application. This is for the Lolly site at 2030 and 2040 3rd Street, this Chevron and Starbucks Center. Location here up in the Thermalito area. Some history, Planning Commission approved the use permit for the construction of the building in 2013. Building permits were semi-final in 2021. Full site improvements were never completed. Planning Commission in February approved use permit 2404 for site improvements for Starbucks. Building permits were applied for Starbucks wall signage and drive-through signage, and a separate application was filed for a variance to allow for the installation of a 70-foot tall freestanding sign with space for 2 tenants. This on the right is what the sign is proposed to look like. It will have space for Chevron and space for Starbucks. The max sign square footage is exceeded for a freestanding sign. The sign code allows 75 square feet of signage, and the freestanding sign as proposed is 126 square feet. Something to note, and if the applicant is on, the max total sign square footage will not be exceeded. However, based on existing and proposed signs, only 12.5 square feet remains for the future 2 tenants. So should the Planning Commission approve this sign, whoever occupies those 2 tenant spaces are going to be duking it out for 12.5 square feet of signage. In this case, similar to the last one, a condition of approval is proposed for pole cover cladding to demonstrate compliance with the general plan and design guidelines, enhance visual appearances from State Route 70, and align with recently approved freestanding signs. Project-specific condition of approval during staff's analysis of the initial use permit for the drive-through and of this building permits and for the variance application, it came to our attention that some unpermitted signage exists on the property of the Crispy Crunchy Chicken. There's no record of a wall permit being applied for and received for that sign. The car wash sign on the rooftop is an example of a prohibited sign by code, and no record of a permit being applied for that is on file with the city. And then this little monument sign at the front here, welcome to Oroville USA Mini Mart. It's been there for quite some time, but I was unable to locate permit record for those signage. So we're proposing to kind of tie the removal of those unpermitted signage to the approval of this variance application. If the applicant's property owner is able to furnish proof that a permit has been received for those, then they are more than welcome to keep those signs. In this case, we're recommending adoption of Resolution P 2024-08 and approve variance 2402 with the recommended conditions of approval.
Have you talked to the applicant about removing those signs already?
The applicant was made aware previously that they do have unpermitted signage. That was during the Development Review Committee meeting, and I believe it was mentioned a couple emails or so. So they are aware of the unpermitted signage. They have been given the staff report to review and haven't received any objections to the removal of those signage.
Okay, so it wouldn't be a surprise coming out of this meeting then?
I hope not.
And then the photo you showed us of the sign, is that clad? Is that like a round steel cladding, or what is?
No, so that is just going to be an exposed metal pole. I believe it would be painted silver or white or something of the like, similar to what was there. 1 second as I pull up the plans for the property. So this is what is currently there. I'm assuming the proposed sign will have something similar to what that looks like with the exposed pole, just painted a certain color.
So we're approving exactly what is on that there?
We're approving this with the recommended condition that a pole cover be provided for this sign. So in this case, if the circumstances are considered to be substantially different than the Tractor Supply, this site is going to be highly visible. It's located immediately adjacent to 3rd Street. It is visible from southbound traffic. There's no landscaping on that side, and it is of a higher height. So if we follow that logic, then the pole cover requirement would stand.
Okay, so they didn't draw that with the cladding? Then.
No, they did not.
And is there any other cladding than square cladding?
There are many different kinds of cladding. Typically, when it comes to pole covers like that, you're going to see more in line with what was shown with Starbucks and Panda Express, just covering exactly what the pole is.
I've seen a lot of boxy cladding, but I don't think I've seen any circular cladding or anything beside boxy cladding.
I believe, none in Oroville at least, none in Oroville are round circular cladding.
That's a question staff cannot answer at this moment, but the applicant is represented by a gentleman named Dave Coberly, who's been in this business for a long time. He might be able to answer that. We can ask him that.
Thank you. Did anybody else have questions from Connor now before that?
The landscaping will be required as well, and is that in here, or is that just part of the plan and that is going to happen? Because I know there is no landscaping there.
So landscaping will be provided. That was a part of their building permit submittal with Starbucks tenant improvements.
Okay.
They're proposing to install the sign in what will be a existing proposed landscape area in the parking lot. So based on staff's analysis, there is sufficient landscaping at the base to meet code requirements.
Okay. So just the cladding then?
Correct.
So Connor, the sign that you're showing now, is that the proposed sign in its entirety? Or is there going to be a different illustration?
With different sign faces or different pole cover or something like that?
Yeah, so with cladding, is that it?
Yep. This is not with cladding. So none of the applicants have provided cladding and none of them are proposing cladding. Staff are proposing to require them to provide cladding in this. So they would update the plans following approval to the satisfaction of our Director of Community Development as to that pole cover.
Okay, so.
Can I make, sorry. Can I make one?
That's not the applicant.
Connor, so we're approving this sign, but we don't know, and the cladding's gonna come in at a future date approved by staff?
Correct, yes. So it would be approved by you guys and given staff discretion to have acceptance of that pole cover cladding. The intent was really to get this project to continue to move forward and not hold them up from being able to install their sign.
Okay, is the applicant wanting to do away with the cladding? Or do they care?
Considering that they didn't propose it, I'm sure they don't want it.
Well, I asked for the applicant to speak, and
Pardon me?
you ready for the applicant to speak?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Would you like to speak?
Sure. Hi, my name is the button on?
You're
Okay.
on.
I'm Dave Coberly with Superior Sign. Thank you for letting us speak here today. In regards to the pole cladding, we hope that we don't have to put that on there because the main point is it's about $50,000 worth of steel that has to go up on the outside. You put the pole up and then you have to build framework around the poles and then you've got to sheet it with aluminum, texture it, paint it, et cetera. And it's very, very expensive. As far as a round pole cover, I have seen them and they're quite a bit more. I've never done one. And I've been doing this business for 50 years, but I haven't had to do a round one. But I have seen signs with them. So we are hoping that we can move ahead with this without the pole cover because most signs are done without the pole covers. I did the sign for McDonald's, I did the signs for Wendy's, and I saw a lot of other signs around with just bare poles. It's pretty much the standard. I did see the Starbucks sign. We did not do that sign, however, we put the sign faces in it for Starbucks. We do a lot of Starbucks locations. But we are hoping that we can put this up without the pole cover. And it's really kind of up to you folks whether or not we need to do that. It would be a special circumstance, I think, at this point. Because the only one that I did see with a pole cover is that Starbucks Panda sign in the area. There might be a few other ones, maybe I missed them. But oh, there's one there around the city of Oroville, outdoor advertising display. So when we started this project, it was December of 2022. A gentleman that's no longer here with your group, and we were under the impression that we could go to 85 feet, and that's where we had started out. The sign was 224 square feet, so we had 4 individual panels, one for Starbucks, one for Chevron, and then 2 future panels for the future tenants. But we had to kind of move away from that and reduce the size of the signs to allow for more available signage for the future tenants and Starbucks themselves. So we've reduced the height down to 70 feet. We did do a flagging, which you folks call a balloon test. We set up a man lift with a target on it, and it's an 8x8 target. We set it at 85, 70, and 60. And at 60 feet, I think everybody came to the agreement that you couldn't see it. You could for a little while, but then it kind of got lost when you were about ready to make the exit. So at 70 feet, you could maintain that. My client is hoping that if there's any way that we can get the 85, that we keep that, but that might be swimming against the current at this point. Because of the fact that the trees are not stagnant, they are going to continue to grow. And right now, you can see the sign at 70 feet, but I think in about 4 years, we're going to have some difficulty there. But I don't want to muddy the waters too much. We want to move ahead with what we can get going now, if that's at all possible. And does that answer the questions, or are there any other questions?
The cladding, is it always stucco, or is there other types of?
Oh, you can put anything you want on it. You can put siding, you can do everything. But typically, we use a tex coat finish over aluminum because it reduces the weight. When you start putting true stucco on there, you're going to add a lot of weight, or even siding for that matter. So we would build a framework that the aluminum would have to go on, attach to, and then you'd paint it with a texture to it. But the downside about pole cladding is it looks real cool on paper, and then you get it up, and every 8 feet, you see this section mark. There's no way to get away from that. And I don't think it looks any better, but sometimes it does. And you can embellish it with cornices around the various sections. But I was wondering if Connor could show the second page in my plan set that shows the overall height of the display. It might be sideways. Yeah, there it is. But it shows the two different pole sections and how the, I think to answer your question about what the overall look of the display would be, as opposed to just the sectional view that we looked at. And the footing's a pretty good footing, and that's what we're hoping to get in the ground. It's 5-foot diameter and 25 feet deep. So there's a lot of dirt going to come out of there. But with Starbucks moving ahead with their tenant improvements, we were hoping to move this forward and get basically the base pipe set in the ground before they move ahead. And we start, if they're open when we're doing the sign, it's going to be a mess. We'll have to do everything at night. But we're hoping that we can move ahead with it as shown and not have a pole clad on there. And that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Glenn?
No, I'm good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Limit discussion between commissioners and staff. Does anybody have any questions or comments, or?
Can Connor show again the sign that's clad, the new Starbucks sign?
1 sec.
So this is a requirement of our new sign code. Yeah, that looks nice.
And this Starbucks Panda Express sign is 85 feet.
Right. And is that stucco? Do we know?
It's probably that text code that he was talking about, the
Yeah.
textured.
Okay. I think it's a good design, personally. I think it definitely has a different feel. It looks nicer, more modern. I think it's a good design that personally I would support that in that great location.
Any other questions or comments, or we're open for a motion?
I mean, it's a gas station. It's not, gas station in a
Starbucks.
strip mall.
And they have the historic trees across. It's been a neglected corner, so it has not been cared for. So it definitely does not look its best right now. And this addition is wonderful addition to this corner and so needed to clean it up and just make it look professional. What about the Home Depot sign? Is that clad?
That's just a 30-foot tall pole like Tractor Supply.
That's just my opinion. I think it has a whole different look and feel. I think it's a good design that just raises the bar a bit for something that is right there.
Is that sign staying in the same location?
Yes, the Starbucks, Chevy.
Yeah, it's proposed to be located roughly right here.
It's a nice looking building behind it. It's a very nice looking building.
Any other opinions from council on the cladding? I have no opinion. I don't know, I don't.
No,
it-
I mean-
It look, I mean, they both look fine to me, so
Yeah.
We're open for a motion then.
Well, then we shouldn't have it in the sign code if no one really thinks that it's important. That's just a comment. If we're gonna have these in there, they're in there for a reason.
All right, well, I'll make a motion that we adopt this, where's it at?
It's item 3.
The variant, is this for the variance or?
Resolution P 2024-08 for variance 2402.
That one.
Is that okay?
Is it the motion as agendized?
Yes, as agendized, yes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Please call roll.
Glenn Rossi,
Yes.
Marissa Allen,
Yes.
Natalie Sheard,
Yes.
Warren Jensen,
yes.
Wyatt Jenkins.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So to clarify, that includes the requirement for cladding.
Yes.
Okay.
It includes waiving the requirement.
No, we did not waive the requirement for the cladding for the second one.
Oh, well, then that's wrong. I
Yeah,
wasn't
I
going,
was-
I
that's
wasn't
what I
going
thought.
to make him put cladding on that sign.
Oh,
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Read the
I mean, I
motion.
want the cladding, but I felt like
Yeah,
this body
but
if
did
there's
not
a-
want to demand it.
I'm sorry, we can redo the motion if you'd like to restate it, Mr. Rossi, and then just have that stipulation in there that it's not gonna require that cladding.
Yeah. Okay. So, what page is this on again now?
So do we need another
61
second?
of
We need
your
another
packet.
second for that then?
Well, he needs to read.
Yes, we would need another second for that. Unless Natalie would like to keep her second on that, so,
I'll keep my second.
okay.
On the revamp?
Yeah, even though I disagree, I can second,
Okay,
right?
so-
Yes,
I'm
you
not
can
gonna
still.
stop them from doing their sign. I
Yeah.
totally am supportive of a sign.
Okay, and then with that, I'll go ahead and call the verbal roll then.
So, just so I'm clear, are we making him put cladding or not?
Not.
Not, okay.
That is the action right now that's being before you.
Okay.
So when I call the roll, this is to not include that cladding.
Okay,
So Glenn Rossi,
yes.
Marissa Allen,
Yes.
Natalie Sheard,
Yes.
Warren Jensen,
yes.
Vice Chairperson Wyatt Jenkins.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you again.
Maybe next time.
I mean,
In the planning stages, it can come up earlier, the cladding? I don't know.
well, it came up later because it came up because of the letter that we received late, or the email that we received late from the Tractor Supply applicant, right? It was based on feedback,
I think,
comment.
yeah, and these variances too, normally it's all one package and we're seeing this at a different point in their,
But it's in the code. The cladding is in the code currently. So you have to,
yeah, so we could, I guess, revisit that because we will be re-amending that. Re-amending,
Sounds like we're gonna be, discussing the sign ordinance part. I messaged with Connor, I guess, that we're targeting the next planning commission meeting, according to him.
okay, so I guess that concludes the public hearing. Do we have any commissioner reports?
the ADU ordinance went, which you all might know this, but it went to city council where we did not, this body did not stipulate that Airbnbs could not, that ADUs could not be used as Airbnbs. But the city council recommended to put that on. But at the last meeting, I think we had 4 speakers, and the city council passed the ADU ordinance pretty much just like we sent it to them. And so now there is not a prohibition.
restriction?
There's not a prohibition against doing short-term vacation rental in your ADU. That is something that the property owner can decide on their own.
So no minimum stay.
No.
We have been working on that ADU ordinance, and certain sections of state law will require for certain types of ADUs minimum stays of 30 days. So we will be clarifying that as the ordinance goes back to council. But it will be according to state law, not the preference of the planning
So
commission.
California is putting in a restriction.
To large ADUs.
Okay,
Smaller ADUs can be
like in people's backyards.
Airbnbs, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Historical advisory?
Yes, we're getting really close. I'm hoping that you're all going to be at the State of the City Tuesday at 5:30, because we're going to announce the recipients of the Historic Preservation Award and show a couple of pictures. We're very close on getting really wonderful plaques with the state seal, but the plaques will not be put on the homes until a plaque unveiling event that we'll have in the future. And their homes will be open, and it'll be a big event. I'm really excited about it. But anyway, I just wanted to say I was hoping that commissioners would come to the State of the City. And then also, when we do the plaque unveiling, I'll let you know, because it would be great to have commissioners there as well for that event.
And then, yeah,
Next Tuesday, I mean, at 5:30 it starts. and-
5:30 at the State Theater.
And the awards are at the beginning. On the
Yes.
30th. Yeah, and the awards are at the beginning. And then the homeowners are working with Noel to determine when they would have their plaque unveiling at their houses and the ceremony and the tours.
Thank you. Staff reports?
There's only one other thing to add beyond what Natalie has said. On the January 15th RFP for the marketing of Oroville, the branding of Oroville and the logo and everything, we did get 15 proposals, and the creative committee has picked a winner. We are waiting to confirm that the city council will provide enough budget in the next budget for us to pull the trigger on this and get going. That's it.
Okay.
I had one real quick. I promised Commissioner Jensen this, just a brief update on the sign code update here. Following our discussion at the last meeting, I took a little dive into my thoughts of updating it. That took a back burner with the 2 variance applications, but essentially the sign code as it exists defines freeway-oriented freestanding signs, but does not set regulations for signs that are oriented towards the freeway. And the definition is vague. It's up to interpretation. It says a sign for a freeway-oriented business that is designed to be visible from the freeway on which the business depends. I think any one of us could determine, well, maybe you don't depend on the freeway, but you do, and you don't, and pick and choose. So we're trying to amend that definition and in short, update and set 2 different permitting classification. One for freestanding signs, which is shorter signs that you would typically see along, our local streets, 162, things like that, and setting those max heights of around 25 feet perhaps, just to throw a number out. And then creating a different code section regulations with freeway-oriented freestanding signs. So these are typically parcels that are going to be larger, deeper, have more tenants, things like that. So setting regulations for a single tenant, multiple tenant, properties within a quarter mile of a State Route 70 off-ramp, and those corresponding heights. Based on tonight's meeting, would probably strike the pole cover requirement from that. And it's up to planning commission to determine whether they want to keep that or have that removed. And then kind of an interesting one that's being proposed is for 2 or more contiguous parcels that are not in a shopping center. So for example, Tractor Supply and Starbucks, or Tractor Supply and Taco Bell, I apologize. They're not in a shopping center, but they're immediately next to each other.
Right.
Staff are proposing a regulation in there that would allow those 2 properties, if they so chose, to share a freeway-oriented freestanding sign. What they would get is they would be allowed to have a higher sign height, larger square footage. It would be subject to a planning commission approval of a use permit. But what that would do is hopefully prevent the proliferation of single tenant signs located along State Route 70 and allow some give and take. The city gets less signs, the applicants get taller sign height, more square footage, things like that. So this is just based on staff's research of some of our surrounding jurisdictions, other cities who have taller signs than us, things like that. And I'm going to target this for some more discussion next month and get your guys' thoughts on that. So that's just a little verbal update from me on it.
Thank you, Connor. I like that idea about sharing signs because one of the concerns about, certainly with the Tractor Supply here, is that is every parcel going to need its own sign?
It's a lot of
And
signs.
when is it going to be too much? So I appreciate that.
It also sounds like more of the commissioners are really worried about signs falling in disrepair more than cladding, you know, because that's really a bad
It's-
appearance.
right.
If somehow we could find more teeth
Yes.
in that, that'd be great.
I will look into that a little bit further as well.
Thank
Like
you.
the city, yeah, the city should charge them if they don't fix their sign.
Well,
Keep it-
it would
keep it
be a
clean,
code
keep it-
enforcement issue if we have it codified in the ordinance.
I feel like it's a nuisance ordinance in that ordinance already, but without teeth, it doesn't mean anything.
All right, that it for everybody?
I have one last thing, just super quickly. We had the second episode of Civic 101.
Episode.
It was finance. Ruth actually gave a really great talk. I learned some things I did not know about transparencies. And my big takeaway is that you can look and see every check that's written every week online. It's on our website. I did not know that before.
I forgot to ask you if this session was recorded since I
Yeah.
couldn't make
We're
it.
not recording these. May do it next year. Maybe record them next year. But
Because that was one of the ones I was most looking forward to because I have no idea how finance works at city level. So
it's different than a commercial business.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit different. We account for everything right down to, is it supplies? Is it professional services? You know, so everything has its own account, and then we have different funds. Everything has to be kept separately because, say, like a lot of Amy's things in our grants, they cannot be commingled with the general fund. They have to be accounted for separately, so that when, excuse me, if there's when monitoring comes around, you just print out that fund and what was spent. So it has to be a clear boundary between the general fund.
Pat, I can pull it up on the screen for them. Would you guys like me to show you real quick how to find the transparency model on our website so you can explore it on your own? Okay. Just give me one moment.
And next week, or not next week, 2 weeks from now is Public Works. Fred's bringing Wade Attenberry and Cody. What's Cody's last name? And Cody.
You have them on Tuesdays or Wednesdays?
They're on Thursday, Nissen,
There you
yeah.
go.
They're on Thursdays, the second Thursday of each month. So they're opposite of the Planning Commission.
That would be Cody Nissan, our airport manager.
Thank you, yep. And so they'll be talking about all of the things that they do and their pitfalls and things that the public can do to help.
Okay, so this is our city website. It's pretty easy to get to the software. You're gonna go to our services menu right here, finance department and then go to our financial transparency model. This is going to load very slowly, but once it does, you can pop it open into a full screen view, which is what I would recommend, and then you can select by different funds that you'd like to look at, and it'll break it down by checks. It can break it down like to the receipts that I purchased my supplies with, so you can see exactly an itemized list of what I used that CalCard purchase for. And
So this is expenses. I've always wanted to see the income from sales tax per area.
You can see that on here as well. It takes a
Can?
little bit of tinkering with. Unfortunately, I'm not an expert on this transparency model, but I know that there are ways you can
But
manipulate
there
this
is a
in
way
here.
that I would
Yes.
be able to see how much sales tax comes from a certain area.
You should, yes, absolutely.
You won't be able to see what comes from each business because that's protected.
Yeah, no, just like
There is an area breakdown?
an area. I'd like to know which areas are bringing in the most income, because I think that makes, those are important things to know. And then to demand, maybe the roads could be maintained because.
You're talking about geographical.
I'm talking
not
about
areas of-
geographical.
I see.
No, geographical, like what does the downtown business district do? How much income does it bring in for the city?
Typically, a city goes to a financial consultant, fiscal consultant. In this case, it's HDL. I think they may have renamed themselves. And you can get what's called a geocode breakdown, but they typically don't do that unless you specially request it. But we can certainly request that and figure that out.
Yeah, I think it's like vital.
And they will, so I think I heard you can't come to the Thursday nights, but they're going to be talking about roads and the cost of roads and how they determine what roads will be done and the funding for roads. So all of that stuff will
Big
be.
one. That's such a big
Yeah.
one. That's
So-
your next one.
That's the next one. And I know none of you signed up, but you're welcome to audit or crash the course anytime
Really?
you want to. Yep, it's
Okay,
at
thank
the.
you. I
public
never
s-
know if I can get there.
It's at public safety in that room upstairs
Oh, at the police department,
at the police department.
Got
Yep.
it.
And it starts at 6,
second Tuesday of every month.
second Thursday of every month.
Yeah, I keep doing that, sorry.
okay.
Thank you, Patrick, for doing it.
Okay, if that's it, we will adjourn to May 23rd, 2024 at 6 PM.